Hello, my darling dears. Lovely to see you as always. Is what I would say if I could see you, which I can't, and if it was lovely, which it's not. Sick burns! Would you believe it? We are somehow already at our second to last class of Unit 2. And on tonight's episode of the hit sitcom Algebra 1 with Mr. Volel. We know how to solve inequalities. We know how to graph them. We know how to write our set builder and interval notations with everything that we know under our belt. All these tools we've added to our toolkit. There's only one thing left for us to do. Only one place left for us to go. It's about time we use them to do some problem solving, this time with some inequality symbols. So back in Unit 1, when we were talking about word problems before, remember we came up with a potential 5-step checklist to guide us through the process of algebraic representation. Look back at your notes, take 30 seconds, maybe you remember all of them, maybe you remember none of them. What are some of the things I want to keep in mind as I'm moving through the process of translating my words into symbols? Pause the video, see what you remember. Let's do it. Alrighty. Well, in terms of things I want to keep in mind, maybe, possible first step, if my problem has a visual dimension, let's draw a diagram. From there, definitely want to make sure that my variable is defined. Do I know what my unknown represents, what I'm trying to find? Step 3, maybe I've got something like a distance, rate, and time, a formula, or an equation, or a relationship that I know I want to use to my advantage. Some kind of visual organizer like a chart might be helpful. From there, step 4, I definitely want to make sure I'm using the important information in my problem to build, back in Unit 1, an equation, but from here on out, I might also have some inequalities. And step 5, once I've arrived at my solution, I just need to ask, last but not least, does it make sense in the context of the problem? Did I include my units? Did I get a random negative number for length, or like a fraction where I knew I needed a whole number that tells me I did something wrong? All that jazz. With all that jazz accounted for, let's chat about problem 1. Tired of reading ads and awkwardly avoiding eye contact with strangers on the subway? Mr. Volel is in the market, hey, that's me, for some new mobile games to spice up his commute. He has only 12.1 gigabytes, abbreviated as GB, of free space left on his phone. He downloads 2 new apps requiring 1.9 and 3.4 gigabytes of storage respectively, and wants to get a third that needs 5.2 gigabytes of space. Write and solve an inequality to determine whether or not Mr. Volel will have enough room to download that third app. We'll solve this one together, but I want you to take 30 seconds and game plan. What parts of this are fluff? What parts of this are actually useful? And with those pieces of information, what do you think I could do with them to write and eventually solve some kind of inequality statement? Go ahead. Alrighty, have you planned out your game? Well, I have, and I want to get playing. So from here, let's take what we know. Hopefully you noticed the entire first sentence is fluff. It's useful for context, but not for the purpose of building my statement. Things that are actually powerful. I know 12.1 gigabytes is the amount of space that I have in total. I know that the 1.9 gigabytes and 3.4 gigabytes represent the amount of space taken up by my 2 apps. And I know at the end, the amount of space for my third app needs to be 5.2. So the thing that this all hinges around is that third app. So what I'm going to do, if I'm building an inequality, first of all, do I need a diagram moving through our 5-step checklist? Well, probably not. I could draw the subway, I could draw the phone, but neither of those are going to be particularly helpful. I do need a variable though. Maybe I'll call it X. The thing that's important is the amount of space taken up by that third app. So I'm going to say that X will represent the size of my third app. You'll remember I often like to include my unit off to the side. In this case, I'll give myself a little GB there. So I know in this case, I'm not actually going to include this 5.2 for now. The way that I'm solving this is not necessarily the only way to solve this. If you arrived at a different inequality, that's amazing. What I'm going to do is say that given the stuff that I've got, I know that I can't go over the amount of space left on my phone. So I know that when I take my 1.9, combine that with my 3.4, and the X, which I'm using to represent the third app, that cannot exceed, so it has to be less than or equal to the 12.1 amount of space that I've got left. From here, if you want to pause and solve the inequality by yourself, be my guest. I'm going to work through it with you now. 1.9 plus 3.4. On the left side, I just want to get x by itself. First thing I might do is combine some like terms. 1.9 plus 3.4, hopefully you believe me, you can fact check, is 5.3 plus x is less than or equal to 12.1. Last thing standing between me and x by itself, let's subtract 5.3 from both sides. When I do that on the left, 5.3 minus 5.3, these go away. I'm left with x is less than or equal to 12.1 minus 5.3, which I believe is 6.8. So I know that x needs to be less than or equal to 6.8, and then in this case, I'll include my unit of gigabytes. The third app is 5.2 gigabytes, I said. So in the context of this problem, is 5.2 the amount of space less than or equal to the 6.8 that I have left after I download my first two apps? Well, yes, ma'am, it absolutely is. So the answer to my question here is yes, I have enough room to download that third app. Fantastic. Let's move on to another. In a bizarre turn of events, not unlike the plot of the movie Saw, you've been kidnapped and locked in an escape room where you're tasked with solving 8 puzzles. After exactly an hour and 20 minutes, the room will fill with poisonous gas, surely spelling your demise. Assuming that it takes you the same amount of time to complete each puzzle, let's write and solve an inequality to describe the number of minutes you have to complete each puzzle, assuming, of course, that you want to make it out alive, which in the context of the problem, you probably do. Give yourself 3 minutes. Let's come up with a game plan here. I need to figure out what pieces of this are useful to me. I need to define a variable. I need to build an inequality, and I need to solve it. Have at it. Let's do it. Alrighty. So reading through left to right, front to back. I know that the first sentence, the only really useful piece of information that it gives me, I have 8 puzzles to solve in total. If I'm interested first in drawing a diagram, right, I could draw the room that I'm trapped in, but that's not particularly helpful here. So step 1's a bust. I don't need a diagram. But I do need a variable. What am I solving for? Well, I need to know the amount of time that I have per problem. So the number of minutes that I've got will be my variable. Maybe I'll choose m. So let's say that m will represent the number of minutes that I have per puzzle. My unit, of course, is minutes. I've already included that in my definition, so I won't bother writing it again. Step 3, do I need a chart? I mean, I could, but in this case, not particularly important. Let's build our inequality. So I've got 8 puzzles in total, and I know that it takes me m minutes to solve each puzzle. So the amount of time that it would take me to solve each puzzle, well, how would I represent that? I've got 8 puzzles to solve and m minutes per puzzle. How would I solve or represent, the amount of time it takes me to solve all 8? Well, hopefully think back to the kind of stuff we did in Unit 1. I've got 8 puzzles in total. If it took me 2 minutes per puzzle, then I would do 8 times 2. That would take me 16 minutes. If I had 3 puzzles, I'd do 8 times 3 to get the amount of time. But I have m puzzles. So if I do 8, the number of puzzles, times m, the number of minutes for one puzzle, that should give me the total amount of time that I spend puzzle solving. And then I know, after exactly an hour and 20 minutes, notice my unit here is minutes, so I'm going to write an hour and 20 minutes in minutes. Well, an hour is 60 minutes plus 20 minutes. That gives me 80 minutes in total. And I know that exactly at that 80-minute mark, my room is going to become deadly. So the amount of time that I spend needs to be, hopefully you figured this out, less than 80 minutes. Cool. If you need some time to solve this inequality, pause the video and let's do it. If you've already got it, don't bother, let's do it together. Well, I just need to get m by itself. There's one thing in the way. It's that 8. So I'll divide both sides by 8 to isolate our variable, I find that m is less than 10. So in this case, what does that tell me? If m is less than 10, the amount of minutes that I can spend per puzzle needs to be less than 10. So I'll say here, right, maybe I'll write a sentence, maybe I don't need to, but I can spend less than 10 minutes per puzzle. Fantastic. So I know that if I spend 10 minutes or more on each puzzle, I'll hit that 80 minutes, and I'm a goner. Fantastic. Let's do 2 more for the road. First off, a rectangle. Ooh, what does that tell you? You might want to use. A rectangle has a length of 10 centimeters. Its width is 2 more than 3 times some number n. If the area of the rectangle is at least 140 square centimeters, write and solve an inequality to describe the possible values of n. Give yourself 3 minutes. First of all, come up with a game plan. What are the pieces of information that are useful? I gave you a hint. There might be a piece of your 5-step checklist that you want to use here. How can you use it to build an inequality? And then let's solve for our variable. Go ahead. Alrighty. So, first thing I notice here, I see that word rectangle. That tells me I might want to use step 1, a diagram. So I'm going to draw myself a diagram here. In this case, my shape is rectangular. Might behoove me to draw a rectangle. Well, what do I know about this rectangle? First of all, its length is 10 centimeters. I often think of the up and down as length, so I'm going to say here, this is 10 centimeters. And then what do I know about the width? Well, the width is 2 more than 3 times some number n. Well, n is my variable, so I actually don't need to define a variable here. I've already got that n. So in terms of 3 times some number n and then 2 more than that, how would I write that? Well, 3 times some number n, hopefully you remember from back in Unit 1, that's just 3 times n, or 3n. And then I'm 2 more than that, so that would give me plus 2. So here is my length and my width. And then I know that the area is at least 140 square centimeters. If you want to pause to figure out how you're going to set up your inequality, be my guest. I'm going to keep going. Given a rectangle, how do I find its area? Well, I know that area of a rectangle is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, length times width. So in this case, the length I said is 10 centimeters, and then I'm going to multiply it. I'll use parentheses to make sure the entire thing gets multiplied by my width of 3n plus 2. And I know that this area must be at least 140 square centimeters. So if I'm at least, again, remember your translation, at least tells me it's a minimum. So I could be bigger than that number. I could be equal to that number, but I need to be greater than or equal to 140. Again, if you need some time now to solve your inequality, be my guest. Pause the video and take as much time as you need. If you feel like you've got a good handle on it, don't bother pausing. Let's do it together. So the first move that you might want to make, you've got some parentheses you want to get rid of. 2 choices that you could make to do that. What are they? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you, elevator ding. Well, if I've got a 10 outside of parentheses, I could distribute, or other option I like to divide both sides by that 10. If I'm going to distribute it, I'm going to need to divide by the 10 anyway. Might as well do it now. 10 divided by 10 is 1, so I'm just left with 3n plus 2 on the left side. And on the right side, 140 divided by 10 is 14. Next up, I've got to get n by itself. Let's start by subtracting 2 from both sides. Plus 2 minus 2, these go away. I've got 3n is greater than or equal to 12. Divide both sides by 3 to isolate our variable. We find that n must be greater than or equal to 4. So there you go. N could be 4. It could be 4.1, 4.2, 4.9, 5, 6, 7. Don't say anything. It could be 1,000, 3,000, all that good stuff. Cool. And last but not least, one more for the road. Your family is deciding which of two internet providers to go with for your new apartment. Schmerizon charges $42 to install the router and cables on top of its $75 monthly fee. By contrast, Schmectrum charges only $30 for installation, but asks for $80 each month instead. I want to write and solve an inequality to determine the number of months that the total cost for Schmectrum will be less than the total cost of Schmerizon. So again, give yourself 3 minutes. Let's come up with a game plan. What's useful information here? And what's my variable going to be? Given that piece of information, or those pieces of information, how can I take them, slot them into an inequality, and use it to solve for the variable? Go ahead, play around, see what you come up with, and then we'll chat. Alrighty, let's do it. So in this case, do I need a diagram? I could draw the apartment, but no, right? In this case, not particularly helpful. Let's define our variable. What is it that I'm working with here? Well, I know that I'm talking about specifically some number of months. So I'll say maybe M for my variable is going to be the number of months that I'm subscribed to my services. In this case, what do I know? Well, it's important for me in this question to have, in this case, reading the end, I want the cost of Schmectrum to be less than the cost of Schmerizon. So for my inequality, I want the total cost for Schmectrum to be less than the total cost for Schmerizon. Well, what are the two things that make up each one? Well, notice I'll say maybe Schmerizon is in green and Schmectrum is in blue. The cost for Schmerizon, I've got a $42 installation fee, right? Which just happens once. And then every month, I charge $75. For Schmectrum, I charge $30 for my one-time installation and then $80 each month. So obviously we can see here, at the beginning, Schmectrum is going to be a bigger deal because it costs me less for the installation. But that extra difference in cost each month is eventually going to add up. So what is the total cost going to be represented by for each one? Well, there are two parts to it, right? Schmectrum has got both the installation and the monthly fee. Same thing for Schmerizon. Take a minute, pause the video. If I want to build an inequality that's comprised of both the installation and the monthly fee, how would I represent that in symbols? Alrighty, maybe you've got it, maybe you don't, but let's take Schmectrum in blue. I know that Schmectrum, the total cost, well, I have the $30 from the installation, and then I also have the $80 per month. If I was 1 month subscribed to the service, I'd do 80 times 1, that would give me $80. For 2 months, I'd do 80 times 2. For 3 months, I'd do 80 times 3. Hopefully you remember back from Unit 1. If I'm N months subscribed to the service at $80 per month, 80 for 1 month times M for the number of months should give me my total cost. And same thing with Schmerizon. I know that I need to be less than. Well, the Schmerizon, I've got $42 as my base cost plus $75 per month times M, the number of months that I'm charging or subscribed, right? That will give me my total. All I've got to do now is solve for M. Again, if you want some time to solve this for yourself, pause the video and do it. If you feel like you've got it already or you already solved, don't bother pausing. Let's do it together. So I want to get all of my M's to the same side. Maybe I'll start by subtracting 75M from both. On the right side, I've got 80 minus 75M. That's 5M. And then I've got my plus 30 is less than 42. I want to get 5M by itself. So in this case, let's start by subtracting 30 from both sides. When I do that, on the left side, they undo each other. I've got 5M is less than 42 minus 30, which is 12. And then last but not least, I need to divide both sides by 5. Notice that 12 is not evenly divisible by 5. You're welcome to check my work here. I'm going to write it as a decimal. M here is less than 12 divided by 5, I believe, is 2.4. And then I'll include my unit of months. So M has to be less than 2.4 months if Schmectrum is going to be less than Schmereisen. But think logically here. If I have a monthly subscription, I don't get charged at a 0.4 months. I get charged on the month. So what are my possible options? Well, I have to be less than 2.4 months. So if I'm thinking logically, that means that the cost of Schmectrum is less after what are my possible options for months? Well, I can't be 2.4 months, but I could be less than. So if I'm subscribed for 0 months, if I'm subscribed for 1 month, or if I'm subscribed for 2 months, then I'm good. But as soon as I hit that 3-month mark, I know I'm over that 2.4. I know that I've exceeded my limit.